Hello everyone, welcome back to Vaishya's YouTube channel. This is Pooja Sharma and I'm back with your Geography Insert Class 11 series, which is Fundamentals of Physical Geography. So before we begin with the video, this is the contact number of Vaishya's if in case you are interested to enroll for our test series, or if you have any doubts related to your UPSC preparation, please contact on this number. You can even email us and visit our YouTube channel. So let's begin. So this chapter, it deals about the solar radiation, and then the temperature, and also the heat balance of earth. So air in motion is wind. So in simple words we can tell that moving air is known as wind. So the earth, it is surrounded by air all around, and then this air, it forms an envelope, which is the atmosphere, and the earth is inside that envelope, sort of. Okay, so this atmosphere, it is composed of numerous gases like oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and many more. So these gases, they support life over the earth's surface, and the earth, it will receive almost all its energy from the sun in the form of solar radiation, insolation, and all that. So not only does the earth receive energy from the sun, it will also radiate back the same energy to the space which is received from the sun. So because of this, what happens is it creates a sort of a balance. So the earth will not be very warm or heated up also, and neither will it be very cold. Over a period of time, it will balance off. So the amount of heat which is received by different parts of the earth, it will not be the same. It varies in different region. The temperature variation will be different, and that will be because of many factors which we'll be reading in the upcoming slides. So this variation, it will cause pressure differences, high pressure, low pressure in the atmosphere. So this will lead to the transfer of heat from one region to another by winds. So these winds will carry those heat molecules, and that's how the entire process takes place. So the process of heating and cooling of the atmosphere, it is the resultant temperature distribution over the earth's surface. So how much amount of temperature is distributed in a particular area, depending upon that temperature distribution, whether it is high or low, will make that place heated, hot, or cold. So first up we have the solar radiation. So the earth's surface, it will receive the energy in the form of short wavelengths. So this energy which is received by the earth, it is known as the incoming solar radiation, which in short is termed as insolation. Incoming is what we are getting. For example, I'll give you a very simple example. When we get a call from somebody, it is incoming. So that is how it is. And here this insolation, it is nothing but in stands for incoming, and our solar so stands for solar, and the insolation means the radiation. So as the earth is a geoid resemblance, it resembles like a sphere. What happens is the rays of the sun, they'll fall obliquely. Obliquely means they'll be slanting. They'll not form a proper right angle or a straight line or something like that. It will be slanting. So at the top of the atmosphere, they'll fall, these rays. And the earth, it will intercept a very small portion of the sun's energy. So on an average, the earth receives 1.94 calories per square centimeters per minute at the top of its atmosphere. And the solar output received at the top of the atmosphere, it varies slightly in a year due to the variations in the distances between the earth and the sun, because all around the year also there will be variations in the distance because of the way the earth revolves around the sun. So during its revolution around the sun, what happens is the earth is farthest from the sun, which is 152 million kilometers, that is on 4th July. So this is known as the aphelion. The position of the earth during this time is called the aphelion. And on 3rd January, what happens? The Earth is nearest to the Sun, which is 147 million kilometers. So this is known as the perihelion. So therefore, what happens is the annual insolation which is received by the Earth on 3rd January, it is slightly more than the amount which is received on 4th January, because it will be near to the Sun. So however, what happens is the effect of this variation in the solar output, it will get covered or masked by other factors like distribution of land and sea all across the Earth, and also the atmospheric circulation of wind which takes place. It won't influence it so much. So this variation in the solar output, it does not have a great impact on the daily weather changes on the surface of the Earth. So next we have the variability of insolation at the surface of the Earth, the differences. So the amount and the intensity of insolation that vary during a day, in a season and in a year, there are reasons for it. So the factors that will cause these variations during night, during day, during a particular season like summer, winter, and also during the time period of a year. So mainly it is the rotation of Earth on its axis. Also the angle of inclination of the sun's rays. So we all know that the Earth is slightly tilted. So because of that also, the distribution of the sun's rays, it makes a lot of difference. So the length of the day, so that also is a reason why there's variation. Then we have the transparency of the atmosphere. Now we all need to remember that atmosphere is type of invisible sheet type of surrounding layer which is around the Earth. So due to its transparency, what happens is when the rays which come from the sun, when they scatter out, there'll be more easy penetration, and there'll be more easy visibility because of the transparent nature. And also the configuration of land in terms of its aspect, and also there are many other local aspects also. So the last two, which is the transparency of the atmosphere and the configuration of land, they don't have that much influence. So the fact that the Earth's axis, it makes an inclination angle of 66 degree and a half with the plane of its orbit. So around the sun, it has a greater influence on the amount of insolation which is received at different latitudes because of this tilted nature. So you can see they are showing us the drawing like this, and our Earth is also placed like this only. But then what happens is the Earth moves in this tilted manner. If you follow this line of north and south, it moves in this tilted manner around the Earth. It doesn't move straight like this. It moves like this around the sun. So the variation in the duration of the day, it can be seen in this table. As you can see that on particular dates, for how many hours at which latitude, how many hours there is the presence of sunlight. Then the second factor which will determine the amount of insolation which is received is the angle of inclination of the rays. So you can see these are the sun rays, and you can see that the Earth is tilted, right? So what will happen is this shaded area, the light won't reach towards this shaded area because only this portion of the Earth will receive the rays. So this depends on the latitude of that particular place where it's falling. So the higher the altitude, there will be this less angle which will make the surface of the Earth heated or cold, and it will result in slant sun rays. So you can see that sun rays, they are falling straight. They can't go up and down. So because of that, it won't reach to certain areas, and that will cause the presence of night in that region, or it will be cold in that region. So the area which is covered by the vertical rays, it is always less than the slant rays. Also, if more area is covered, the energy which will get distributed and the net energy which is received per unit area, it will get decreased automatically. So moreover, what happens is these slant rays, they are required to pass through a greater depth. They go deeper And what happens is when they go deep into the atmosphere, it will result in more absorption, scattering and diffusion. So the passage of solar radiation through the atmosphere, how it happens. So as we all know that the atmosphere is largely transparent to short wave solar radiation. So the incoming solar radiation which comes from the sun, it passes through the atmosphere before it will strike the earth's surface. So within the troposphere only, what happens is the water vapor, ozone layer and other gases, they absorb much of the near infrared radiation. So what happens is ozone layer, the reason why ozone layer is very important is ozone layer protects us from the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. So when we use these chlorofluorocarbons, and when there's a usage of more toxic chemicals and gases, it will create holes in the ozone layer. So because of that, what happens is sometimes when these holes are created in the ozone layer, the sun's radiation or the rays, it will directly enter the earth and there will be no a layer of protection. So that can cause very harmful burns on our skin, and it can cause a lot of uh, deficiency, not, I wouldn't tell deficiencies, it will harm our bones and our bodies and all of that. So ozone is very important. So very small suspended particles in the troposphere, they'll scatter, okay, and the visible spectrum will, it'll occur, and both the space and towards the earth's surface this will take place. That because of that only the color will be visible to our the human eye. So this process, it adds color to the sky. So if you can see over here this explanation, the sun has two types of lights. One is the red and blue. So these are scattered by molecules in the air, and this process is called as the Rayleigh scatter. So the light will move in wavelengths. Some will be long and some will be short. So wavelengths are these inverted U type wavelengths, and then the red, orange and yellow light waves, they are short. So what will happen is they do not show through as much as blue color. That is why the sky will be appear so that is why the sky appears to be blue, and even the ocean. So the molecules, they scatter the blue light rays in different directions. So the red color of the rising and the setting sun and the blue color of the sky, they are all the result of this scattering of light within the atmosphere. Next we have the spatial distribution of insolation at the earth's surface, how it is distributed at various space intervals. So the insolation which is received at the surface, it will differ. In the tropics it will be different, in the poles it will be different, and the maximum insolation, it is received over the subtropical deserts where the cloudiness will be less, because the clouds, they also reflect the light back, light in the sense the rays. So the equator receives comparatively less insolation than the tropics, and generally what happens is at the same latitude, the insolation will be more over the continent than the oceans. And what happens is in during the winters, the middle and the higher latitudes, they'll receive less radiation in summer. Next we have heating and cooling of the atmosphere. So this is type of a heat balance. So there are different ways of heating and cooling of the atmosphere. Sometimes the earth can take care of itself. How the ecosystem restores its balance, same way even the earth, it knows to restore its balance. It's a slow and a gradual process. So the earth, after being heated up by the insolation, it will start transmitting the heat to the atmospheric layers, which will be near the earth in long wave form. And then the air which is in contact with the land, it will get heated slowly, and the upper layers in the contact with the lower layers, they will also get heated, because heat will transfer from one body to another. So as you can see over here, these are the three different ways through which the heating and cooling takes place. When the warm air is rising up through convection, then how the ground gets heated, the ground will heat the air, this is conduction. And then we have radiation, which is when the sun will heat the earth or the ground. So this process is called conduction, transfer of heat from one body to another. So conduction takes place when two bodies of unequal temperature are in contact with one another, and there is a flow of energy from the warmer to a cooler body. So many a times we do it at home also, when when we are trying to drink hot water, and when it's very hot we mix in some, no, this example won't be right. For example, suppose you have hot water, a glass of hot water, and you want to cool it down very soon. So what we do is we take another big vessel or a container, we put cold water in it, and we just have to dip the hot water glass in that, and you will see immediate transfer of heat energy from one body to another. So the transfer of heat, it continues until both the bodies will attain the same room temperature, or if the contact is broken. So this conduction, it is important in heating the lower layers of the atmosphere. As you can see, the ground heats the air. So the air which comes in contact with the earth, it will start rising vertically. Vertically is a straight line. Okay. So on heating in the form of currents, and also further transmits the heat to the atmosphere. So this process of vertical heating of the atmosphere is known as convection, when the warm air will rise up. Then this convective transfer of energy, it is confined only to the troposphere. What happens is the transfer of heat through horizontal movement, that is like this. Horizontal is a sleeping line. When this movement of transfer of heat takes place, it is called as advection. So horizontal movement of the air is relatively more important than the vertical movement, because it will determine the variation in daily weather between day and night in the middle latitudes. So in tropical region, what happens is, particularly in northern India, during summer season, we have read this earlier, the local winds, which are called as Lu, they'll be the outcome of advection process. So then we have the terrestrial radiation. So terrestrial radiation is when the insolation received by the earth is in the form of short wave forms, and it heats up the surface really very quick. What happens is, the shorter wavelength, it will have higher frequency, so it will emit more energy, so that is how it will get heated up quickly. So the earth, after being heated itself, it becomes a radiating body, and it starts radiating energy to the atmosphere in long wave form. So you can see that the earth, it will heat up very quickly because of the short wavelength, but when it will radiate back, it will cool down slowly because of the longer wavelengths, because the heat, it transfers from molecule to molecule, right? Here what happens is, because of the short wavelength, the molecules will transfer heat soon and quickly. Here what happens is, because of this long wavelength, the transfer of heat, it will happen slowly. So this energy, it heats up the atmosphere from below, and this process is known as the terrestrial radiation. So the long wave radiation, it will be absorbed by the atmospheric gases, and this will be particularly done by the greenhouse gases and also by carbon dioxide. So thus what happens is, the atmosphere is indirectly heated by the earth's radiation. See, in one way it is good. Carbon dioxide, it will absorb the sun's heat and everything and all that, and it will keep the planet little bit warm. But what happens is, when there is too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it will absorb a lot of sun's radiation and all that, because of which the temperature will rise, and when the temperature rises, all these snow caps and all these places which are covered by snow and everything, it will start melting. Then in turn it will lead to floods. So everything is good, but in balance and in the right proportion. So the atmosphere, it radiates and transmits heat to the space. So what the earth receives, it will send it back, which is outgoing earth radiation, outgoing terrestrial radiation. So finally the amount of heat which is received from the sun is returned to space, and thereby it will maintain constant temperature at the earth's surface and in the atmosphere as well as externally. So next we have the heat budget of planet earth. So the earth, it will not save in too much of heat also, it won't lose too much of heat also, it will know how much amount should be available present in the atmosphere. So it maintains its temperature, and this can happen only if the amount of heat received in the form of isolation which comes from the sun, it should be equal to what the sun is radiating back to the space through terrestrial radiation. So consider that the insolation that is received by the atmosphere, it is 100%. Okay. So while passing through the atmosphere, some amount of this 100%, it is reflected back, or it is scattered, and it is absorbed. So let's take an example that suppose there is water, and we have a dry cloth. So we are trying to absorb that water, and let's take that example for now. So what happens is only the remaining part reaches the earth's surface. So as you can see over here, so roughly 35 units they'll get. See, 100% is the total rays or the radiation that we receive from the sun. Now what will happen, that full 100% won't enter the atmosphere. Half of it, on the way only, it will get reflected back because of the clouds or shiny surfaces. It will get scattered in the air because of the molecules, and also it will get absorbed by trees, or absorbed by the gases. So just think of it as that way. We just need to make this simple. So roughly 35 units are reflected back to the space even before reaching the earth's surface. So suppose out of 100, 35 they went back, okay, and only the rest 65 are entering into the earth's surface. So out of these 65, what will happen, 27 units they will be reflected back from the top of the clouds, okay, and 2 units because of the snow and ice covered areas of the earth. Now the reflected amount of radiation, it is called the albedo of the earth. So whatever the earth did not receive and sent it back, that is the albedo of the earth, reflected amount of radiation. This is the right term. So the remaining 65 units, they are absorbed, out of which 14 units within the atmosphere and 51 units by the earth's surface. So this 65 units which was left after deducting that 35 units, what will happen is, in the 65 units, 14 units will be absorbed by the atmosphere. The first layer, the first gate to enter earth is the atmosphere. So 14 units will be absorbed over there. Next, what will happen, the 51 units which will enter the atmosphere after 14 getting deducted, 51 units will be absorbed by the earth's surface. So the earth will radiate back this 51 units because of terrestrial radiation. What will happen now, we all will be thinking that when 65 units came into the earth, why is only 51 units getting radiated back? What happens is, this rest 14 units, it will be absorbed by the atmosphere. So because of that, only 51 units will reach the earth's surface. So the total amount of energy which is received by the earth's surface, it will radiate back that much only. It won't radiate back anything extra. So out of these 51 units, 17 units will be radiated to the space directly, and the remaining 34 units, they will be absorbed by the atmosphere again. While traveling back again, when they will get radiated back from the earth, again the atmosphere will absorb. So 6 units will be absorbed directly by the atmosphere, and the 9 units will be because of convection and the turbulence, and also the remaining 19 units, it will be because of latent heat of condensation. Condensation will be when clouds will be formed and it will rain. Then what will happen? The remaining 48 units, it will get absorbed by the atmosphere. So this 14 units will be because of the insolation which came from the sun, and these 34 units from terrestrial radiation. So this will also get radiated back into the space. So what will happen? The total radiation which is returning from the earth and the atmosphere respectively will be 17 plus 48. This 34 plus 14. And also this 17 which is absorbed by the earth. So this unit, this 65 units, it will be balance of the total 65 units which received from the sun. So this is termed as the heat budget or the heat balance of the earth. So this explains why our earth will not become too heated also, it will not become too cool also, and despite there is this huge transfer of heat that takes place, still there will be a balance somehow. So next we have the variation in the net heat budget of the earth's surface. So there will be a lot of variations in the amount of radiation received at the earth's surface, and some part of the earth it has surplus radiation, means it will have more radiation. Balance other parts will have a deficit or less radiation. So as you can see in figure 9.3, it will show you the latitudinal variation in the net radiation balance of the earth. So this is the atmosphere system. So you can see between 40 degrees north and south, the regions near the poles, they have less deficit. And then you can see that the figures where there is surplus net radiation, it is between 40 degrees north and south. And these are the poles. You can see north is over here and south pole is over here. Here it is deficit. So the surplus heat energy from the tropics, it will again get redistributed at the pole world towards the poles, and as a result the tropics, they won't get very much heated also due to the accumulation of excess heat, or because of the high latitudes which will get permanently frozen due to excess deficit. So this will not happen. Next we have temperature. So the interaction of insolation with the atmosphere and the earth's surface, it will create this heat which is measured in the terms of temperature. So while heat represents the molecular movement of particles comprising a substance, the temperature is the measurement that in how much degree of how hot or cold a thing is, or a region or a place is. So the factors that control temperature, it can be distribution. It can be distribution of the temperature of air at any place, which is influenced by the latitude of that place, then the altitude of that place, also distance from the sea, and the air mass circulation. There is also the presence of warm and cold currents, and also other local aspects. So now we'll look into them in detail. So the latitude. So the temperature of a place, it depends on the insolation which is received. So this can be known by the insolation that varies according to the latitude and in which region that latitude is. So the temperature also will vary accordingly. Like at a higher latitude, there'll be more it will be more hot, and at a lower latitude it will be cold. So the altitude is nothing but the height. So the atmosphere is indirectly heated by terrestrial radiation from below. So therefore the places which are near the sea level, they will record higher temperatures than the places which are situated at a higher elevation. They will have less low temperature. So in other words, what will happen is the temperature generally decreases with increasing height. So the rate of decrease of temperature with height, it is termed as the normal lapse rate. So it is 6.5 degrees Celsius per 1000 meters. So distance from the sea. Another factor which influences this temperature is also the location of a place with respect to the sea. Compared to land, the sea will get slowly heated up and it will lose heat also very slowly because of the presence of water. Land will heat up very soon, and also it will cool down also very soon. Therefore, the variation in temperature over the sea, it is less compared to the land. So the places which are situated near the coastal areas, the seas, they come under the moderating influence of the sea. And also the land breezes which are the land breezes which, you know, occur, they will also moderate the temperature, balance it. So the air mass and the ocean currents. So what happens is, like they are land and sea breezes, the passage of air masses also affects the temperature from one region to another. So the places which will come under the influence of warm air masses, they'll experience higher temperature, and also the places which come under cool cold air masses, so they will have low temperature. Similarly, during near the coast, places which are near the coastal areas, they will have these warm ocean currents, because of which it will record a higher temperature. Whereas there'll even be coastal areas where, you know, cold water currents will flow, so because of that, that region will be cold. So next up we have the distribution of temperature. So the global distribution of temperature, it can be understood by looking at the temperature distribution in the months of January and July, as you can see over here in this picture. So the temperature distribution, it is shown with the help of isotherms on the map. And the isotherms, they are lines which are joining places which have equal temperature. So as you can see here also, you know, all across 3 degrees Celsius, this entire line. Same way you can see in other places also. 20 degree over here, that same line will show 20 degree over here. Okay. So as you can see, these are the next upcoming pictures. Don't ignore this. So these will show the distribution of surface air temperatures for January and July month, which we will see in the next slide. So in general, the effect of the latitude on temperature, it is well pronounced on the map. As the isotherms, what will happen, they are generally parallel to the latitudes. And also the deviation from the general trend, it is more in January than July, because especially in the terms of the northern hemisphere, you can see it's bending more, the lines are bending more in northern hemisphere. So in the northern hemisphere, what happens is the land surface area is much larger than in southern hemisphere, because in the southern hemisphere there is more presence of water body. Here you can see, the if you go in terms of coverage area, you will see that it is filled with continents and land masses and all that. Here you will see that, you know, there is more of the coverage area over here is water body. So hence the effects of land mass and the ocean currents will be well pronounced, means there will be a proper differentiation because of this. So as you can see, this is the distribution of surface air temperature in the month of January. You can see how much these are bending in the northern hemisphere. So in January, what happens is the isotherms, they'll deviate towards the north over the ocean, and to the south over the continent. So this can be seen in North Atlantic Ocean, and the presence of warm ocean currents in the Gulf Stream and the North Atlantic drift, it will make the North Atlantic Ocean warmer, and also the isotherms, they are bending towards the north. As you can see, their inclination is towards the north. So over the land, what will happen, the temperature will decrease sharply, and the isotherms will bend towards south in Europe, this region. Also you can see in the Siberian plain also the presence of it, and the mean January temperature along will be 60 degrees east longitude, which is minus 20 degrees Celsius, both at 80 degrees north also and 50 degree N latitudes also. So the mean monthly temperature for January will be over 27 degrees Celsius in the equatorial oceans, over 24 degrees Celsius in the tropics, and 2 degrees Celsius to 0 degrees Celsius in the middle latitudes, and it can go up to minus 18 degrees Celsius to minus 48 degrees Celsius in the Eurasian continental interior. So then we have the continuation of that only. The effect of the ocean is well pronounced in the southern hemisphere. So what will happen is, here the isotherms, they'll be more or less parallel to the latitudes, and the variation in the temperature, it will be more gradual. It will not be how it was in the northern hemisphere. It will be gradual over here, less. It will be very less. So the isotherm of 20 degrees Celsius and 10 degrees Celsius and 0 degrees Celsius, it runs parallel to 35 degrees 35 degrees south, 45 degrees south and 60 degrees south. If you can see over here, this 10, 20 and 0. So what will happen is, because of this, in July the isotherms, they'll generally run parallel to the latitude. How there was a bending towards the north in January, it will not happen over here. The equatorial oceans, they'll record warmer temperatures more than 27 degrees Celsius. So over the land, what will happen? It will go up to more than 30 degrees Celsius, and in the subtropical continents region of Asia, along 30 degree north latitude. So along this, the 40 degree north latitude runs the isotherm of 10 degrees Celsius. Along the 40 degrees S, the temperature is 10 degrees Celsius. As you can see in the picture over here, it is showing you the thermal equator which is present over here, because of which the temperatures will go up to 30 degrees Celsius. So what will happen is, the range of temperature between January and July, as you can see over here, you can see the different ranges. Here it's showing 40, here 30, here it's going up to 50, 60. Here you can see the variation, 3 degrees Celsius. So the highest range of temperature is more than 60 degrees Celsius over the northeastern part of Eurasian continent. And this is due to continentality. The least range of temperature, you can see, as I said earlier over here, 3 degrees Celsius, which is found between 20 degree south latitude and 15 degrees north latitude over here. So then we have the inversion of temperature. So what happens is, temperature decreases with increase in height. So this is called as the normal lapse rate. So as you can see over here, as in when the height is increasing, the temperature is reducing. Here it became 10, here it is 17, and when you see at lower regions it is 23 point change. So at times the situation is reversed, and what happens is, this normal lapse rate will get inverted. So this is called as inversion of temperature. So inversion, it usually takes place for a shorter duration of time, and it is very common. So a long winter night with clear skies and still air is ideal situation for inversion. So the heat of the day, it will get radiated during the night time, and by early morning hours, what will happen? The earth will become cooler than the air above, because this entire heat will get radiated in the night. So there will be no or very less heat left to keep the earth warm. So that's why in the mornings, you will feel it is more colder or cooler. So over the polar area, what happens is, temperature inversion is normal throughout the year. But surface inversion, which takes place, it promotes stability in the lower layers of the atmosphere, because to keep a balance. So smoke and dust particles get collected between the inversion layer and spread horizontally to fill the lower strata of the atmosphere. So these will form these dense fogs, which will be very common occurrences in the morning, especially during the winter season. So this inversion commonly lasts for few hours until the sun rises and brings in the warm rays or the heat waves to the earth to melt it down. So the inversion takes place in hills and mountains due to air drainage. Now what is air drainage? So cold air at the hills and mountains, which are produced during the night when all the heat is getting radiated, it will flow under the influence of gravity. It will get pushed down. So being heavy and dense because of the force of gravity, the cold air will act almost like water, and it will move downwards the slope to pile up into big pockets in the valley bottoms. And what will happen? The warm air, it is lighter, right? So it will rise above. So this is called as the air drainage, and it protects the plants from frost damages. So in the textbook, they have mentioned these two definitions. Planck's law, which states that a hotter body, the more energy it will radiate, and the shorter wavelength of that radiation. And then specific heat is the energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 gram of substance by 1 Celsius. So that's all for today. I'll be back with the next chapter. Make sure that you like and share these videos and also subscribe to our channel. And then also leave a one-liner comment how you liked our videos and if it's useful for you and helpful for you. Also, you can contact on this number. All the best and thank you.